Name a $2 billion religious mafia that enlists A-list celebrities to perpetuate a systemically vicious criminal enterprise. I'll go first. The Church of Scientology has been linked to a number of horrific crimes that would violate and shock Miss Geneva Convention herself. Behind the cult's closed doors, church policies promote unethical and dangerous behaviors, while enforcing inhumane punishments against all members, including underage children. Being a two-time cult survivor, I've experienced my own fair share of the systemic depravity committed in the name of religion, and to be honest, I'm not shocked or surprised anymore by what takes place inside of cults. Or so I thought. Jenny and I spent more than 2 hours discussing her horrific experience inside the Church of Scientology, and for 2 entire hours, I couldn't keep my jaw off the floor. Once you hear Jenny's story, you might also walk away with a severe case of TMJ. So pop an Advil, grab your mouth guard, and let's dive in. Scientology is kind of a hot topic. Why do you think so many people are interested in Scientology out of all of the cults that are out there?
Gosh, I'm not totally sure, but I guess if I was to kind of think about past times and now, Scientology's been always very secretive, and their members are so self-policing to not like step out of the bounds. And one of the absolute biggest crimes, it's like a high crime in Scientology, is to speak negatively about it. Even if it's truth that you're speaking, if it's negative, it's not okay. It's more punishable than abusing a child.
Wow. Oh my God.
So it's of that magnitude. And so a lot of the members don't, because they face disconnection is what they call it. So like the Jehovah's Witnesses call it disfellowshipping. Some
Right.
people call it shunning. So that's their version of it. And some people are trying to just hang on for dear life to like their parents or friends or maybe a job. And so I think there's that. And then also with the internet, people are finding that they have a voice that can't be stopped. And then you have like also numbers of people, so where if one person did it, Scientology can go all out and just what they call
Right.
fair gaming and just absolutely annihilate the person. But when you have that safety in numbers is probably the best way to describe it. So you have more and more people are finding a safe space to have a voice. A lot of people have been looking for a way to do it without having their whole lives turned upside down by Scientology.
What was the term that you used? You said
fair gaming. So there was an old L. Ron Hubbard policy. In Scientology, you don't have scriptures or doctrine. They only use those words when they're trying to sound legit in the outside world. In the organization, it's called policy or bulletins, basically. So there was policy that was called fair game, and it talks about when you have like an enemy of the organization, enemy of the church, everything's fair game. So you can do whatever you have to do to like just annihilate the person. He literally says that you want to completely discredit them, lose them their job, money, cut their family connections, like whatever you have to do to basically completely wipe the person out. So later he canceled it, but if you read the policy in it, he's saying that we're not canceling the activity, we're just canceling the name of it because the name of it's gotten us in trouble.
Yeah.
So they still have that policy. And so, yeah, you have a lot of people who they're scared to speak out because that's, it's very scary. They're a multi-billion-dollar organization. When you think about the weight of that coming at you, it's like, yikes.
Yeah, it's hard to compete against that. And I think that's another differentiator between Scientology and a lot of cults is that they put into writing what a lot of cults do, but they won't put words to it. But the fact that they had a policy saying essentially ruin this person's life if they say anything negative about the organization, like to be at that level of comfortability with saying that outright and putting it into writing and then teaching everyone to do that's next level messed up. Like they're not even trying to be secretive about how toxic they are.
Right. I know, it's so true. And the department that does that, they have a lot of other policy that the rest of the organization's not privy to. So we don't even see that stuff. But we do have, like in our code, if you will, there was a code of 18 points that we'd have to swear to, like literally raise your right hand kind of thing. And one of them is to like increase the power of the seaorg and decrease the power of any enemy. So that's even one of the main 18 points. And you recite these you like renew, it's almost like renewing vows, but
Yeah.
your
Yeah.
commitments, you're renewing your commitment to it, but you swear to it when you go in, and then you have to sort of live by that code.
How often do you have to recommit to the code?
You do it once a year on the like the anniversary of the organization. So Scientology kind of comes in 3 different levels. So you have like the people who they call public. In any other church, they would be your churchgoers or your parishioners.
Okay.
And yeah, so they, but they have their normal lives. They live at home. They just come and they do courses and what Scientology likes to call auditing, and we can kind of get into that later. Their version of therapy, sort of.
Right.
Not really, but sort of.
Yeah.
And then they have staff. So they have Scientology missions and organizations, so varying sizes of these little organizations. And these staff work like basically either 9 to 6. They have 2 different shifts, basically. They work on 2 shifts. So one is 9 to 6, the other is 6 to 10, and on weekends from 9 to 6. So, but they also have their normal homes or apartments or wherever they they work on 2.5 to 5 year contracts. And sometimes it's very difficult for them because in the organization they don't hardly ever make money, so a lot of times they have other jobs too, so they're burning all ends. And then you have your most dedicated people, and that's the Sea organization, and they actually truly sign a billion-year contract. And
oh shit.
Those are the people who swear to this code, and they work 24/7 all year long, and it's hardcore. Like I eventually followed my parents into that level, and I was working 110 130 hours a week. It's
And
wild.
how much do you get paid?
You get an allowance. And on a good week you'll get 40 after taxes, about $47.50
For 110 hours a week.
and 110
How's
hours
that
is probably a
legal?
good week.
Seriously, how is that legal?
It's legal because what you do is you agree to be a quote unquote volunteer. So all it is an allowance, and as a volunteer you don't have to be paid.
That's some sketchy shit right there. That's sketchy. They're bringing in so much money though, like you said, they're bringing in so much money. It's like, I don't know how much, did you say millions, billions of dollars this, Scientology is bringing in. Who is that money being funneled to?
Everything
Exactly.
flows up to the top.
Who's at the top?
A man named David Miscavige. It used to be L. Ron Hubbard, but he passed in
right.
the mid-'80s.
Rest not in peace, my guy.
Yeah, for real. Yeah, like, I mean, they don't really believe in a God, but if they did, he'd probably be the closest to it. It's just amazing because everything he says goes, and you learn that, like, when you're really in there, you learn that from a very young age, and you don't question it. It's just on Harvard policy. It's just the way it is.
But now it's Miscavige.
Yeah, so he assumed leadership from a bit of a questionable way, I would say, because after L. Ron Hubbard died, we were all given this, like, it was a photo of him and this letter, and it was supposed to be that these 2 people who were working closest with L. Ron Hubbard were supposed to take over. And David Miscavige found a whole way that he claimed it was not legit, and he got them, like, removed and kind of out, like, off the scene, and he took over.
Wow. So he's a conniving little effer.
Some people think
obviously
so.
he has to be at the level that he's at and impact the amount of lives that he's impacting terribly.
Yeah.
He's a shady character.
Yeah, and I've never had to work with him directly, thank God, actually. I mean, I'll tell you, like, from sitting, low on the totem pole like I was, just watching all the people in his vicinity just falling. It was that had to be really a sign of character that nobody was, like, surviving around him. Nobody was making it. People were, like, doing terribly and, getting busted and stuff like that. And then there's, after coming out and being on the outside, there's, some of the people who've spoken out are like, they were higher up at the time working directly with him. And apparently this man used to just physically beat people.
What?
Yeah. And you call yourself a church. I mean,
That's disgusting. What a piece of shit. But, and it's interesting that he would alienate people, choice of words, but, he would alienate people that close to him because they're going to have the most dirt on him. And for him to do stuff to, whether it's kicking them out or removing them where they're in a position to talk shit about him, and by talking shit, I mean telling the truth of the type of person that he is.
Yeah.
I mean, that's a little bit of a bold move on his part.
I think for sure you're right about that. But I think also, I don't think he was thinking that was going to happen. I think he thought he exerted enough fear and whatever to make people not do it. I mean, and sometimes people didn't for years and years. And that does show that there was an intense level of fear. But also, like, on your way out, they make you sign your life away. I mean, when I was leaving, I had to sit in a room with a security guard standing there, someone sitting across the table from me, and they had supposedly pulled from all my folders, because they keep all of your confessions, your auditing, they keep notes of everything in files and files, every report ever written on you and everything. They go through there and they write all the terrible things you've done, even if a bit exaggerated, or even if you just gave bullshit in the past to kind of get out of the confessional or whatever. And they put it all in paper to say basically what a terrible person you are. And you initial every page and they video you doing this. And then also in that same document says that you will never speak out. You'll never like attack them. You're not going to do all these things. So you're sitting there signing this document that you think is legit.
So it's like an NDA?
Kind of, yeah, kind of. But it's not called an NDA. They call it like, I don't even know what they do. But anyways, yeah, so then once you initial every page and you sign the end, and you're being like watched by a security guard and you're being videoed while you're doing it. So the whole thing is kind of scary because now you think they have this on you. So if you ever speak a word, oh my God, they're going to take you to court and ruin your entire life. And so I was going through and I'm just signing and the security guard finally goes, "Are you even reading that?" And I was like, "Well, you pulled it from my files, right?" And he's like, yeah. And I said, "Well, then I shouldn't have to read it." And so I just kept going.
There.
Yeah, so that reaction told me there was probably some other like total bullshit in there. But I was like, you know what? I was this close to freedom. I was going to sign those papers because I wanted to walk out that door.
Yeah.
I'd already, been doing heavy mess work. I had been under a 24-hour watch for weeks, and I was ready to get out.
God, yeah, the intimidation factors are insane to me. The cameras, how they the interrogations that I've heard about and you've told me about, just all of the different fear tactics that they use are just next level. They're like military grade or law enforcement grade. Like they want to operate as if they're a whole government entity and not a church.
Right, and the funny thing is they hate the government, like with a passion. You're not supposed to ever go to authorities, and he talks mad smack about him, like about the government, any governmental organizations or psychiatric, psychotherapy, therapy, psychology, any of those types of things. I mean, he is 100% against them, but like he kind of modeled this organization a bit after, like he tried to kind of model it a bit after the Navy. So it's really weird because you have that stolen valor aspect, you're sitting there wearing their uniforms and, and ranks and ratings are issued and like they even like have little campaign bars they give you for different accomplishments in this area. These are very militaristic things.
Yeah.
And it's funky because you're supposed to be a religion. They've changed it up now. They wear other not military looking uniforms, but they still operate that way, like even like they muster 3 times a day and they at least when I left, and I bet you they still do it now, like they'd make you do close order drilling at musters, like, you know, that
What is that?
left face, about face, right face.
What?
I can't
What?
even hardly watch that in a movie right now without just like cringing.
Oh, I bet it's
I'm like,
triggering.
"Ugh."
Yeah.
And it just felt so weird. But even like, so being a kid of a Sea Org member, they used to have a daycare for us. And our goal, you know, other than them, you know, trying to get us indoctrinated into Scientology early, was when we were 10, we got to be what they called a cadet. That's also a military type thing.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, what religion do you know of that has cadets? And we were like little 10, 11-year-olds working till 10 o'clock at night and wearing uniforms and doing close order drilling. And all, I mean, that place, the Qatar was definitely, those were some of my absolute worst years. I mean, absolutely hated them. You have basically,
It sounds terrible.
yeah, like they really hammer into you are not a child. Like you are not a child. You are training to be a competent Sea Org member. You've lived for millions of years. You know, kind of like that's the mentality.
And you're like, I'm 10. I'm 10 years old. This is my first time doing this shit.
I know. It was so like, then they're like, go to bed. And you're like, but I thought I was like a million years old.
It's so weird. Such conflicting, like, information.
Yeah, they actually start telling us that when I mean, 5, 6 years old. We were definitely told that we were not children. We were old, like spiritual beings that have lived millions of lives, you know.
So there's no sanctity of childhood. You want to
not
call
really.
It that. It's like, so at what age do they start? You said at 10 you start being a cadet. Does anything happen prior to 10? Is there any lead up to becoming a cadet?
Yeah. So when like at this old daycare they don't have it anymore, but when they did have it, you know, we would go to school, like when you hit that age, you know, for kindergarten, elementary, we used to actually go to school, and then afterwards, you know, we do homework and we'd have some playtime. But when you turn 6, they expect you to start doing like Scientology courses. So like they had the children's communication course and they had like the children's study course, these things, and we would have to do them, you know, even if we didn't like it, but that was so we can start learning the technology. And right around that same age, we're also being introduced into like their ethics and justice technology, at a lesser scale.
Coming from how they behave, like from top to bottom, like what ethics, what justice.
So probably the main things that we did at that age were we were these things were called OW write-ups, which were overt and withhold write-ups. So an overt is like a sin. So you have your sins of omission or sins of commission, and then you have the action of withholding them. So you have to sit there and write these. There's a very exact format. You write what the overt is, then you have to write the time, place, form, and event of that particular overt or withhold. And you have to do this until you can pass what they call a meter check. And a meter check is basically they have a device called an e-meter. And I don't know how to describe it other than it moderately resembles a inefficient lie detector. It does read on some things though, like reading as in there's a needle that moves according to thought. So something about it can create a reaction on this thing. It just doesn't always do it, but anyways, when you're doing these OW write-ups, you have to go hold the cans that are connected to this meter. And
cans?
Yeah, they're metal cans, because apparently it's supposed to put a small electrical charge through, and that's how this device will pick
It's
up
like
on
the
something.
conductor. Okay.
Huh?
I said it. It's like the conductor of the energy or the
Yes.
electro. Yeah.
Yes.
Like
Yes.
green bean cans, or are we more of a corn?
So back in the day, they apparently did use old like metal cans like that. Yeah. So, but by the time I came around, they had already kind of created their own things.
Oh, they got
know.
fancy by that
Yeah.
time. They were legit.
Yeah. So yeah, so you hold these things and they ask you, on this OW write-up, has anything been missed? In this OW write-up, has anything been left out or something, or is there anything incomplete? So they ask you a few of these different questions, and what they're looking for is this needle to float. It's this rhythmic motion of the needle. If you get a different reaction, you're not done, and you have to go write more. And
Even if you're telling the truth.
yeah, even if you kind of go, I swear this is it, this is all, and that's where you enter into like, well, what else can I write? You just kind of put something that
you
might
start
fit
pulling
into the
stuff
category.
out of your booty.
Yeah, and we're like 6 and 7 years old. I mean,
so you get taught to lie at that young of an age, because if you don't lie, then you're going to be like put through something even worse because they don't believe you.
Yeah, you just keep going and keep going, and it's just like, like one time I was just not, I failed 3 of them, and I didn't know what else to write. I had written up everything I could possibly think of, and this kid told me, he goes, you can make that needle flow. I said, really? He goes, yeah. He goes, just think of something that you really like. He goes, what kind of things do you like? I said, well, I like ice cream. And he goes, just think of that when you're in there. So I did, and it worked.
Oh, and I think that goes to show how little you were. Like, the thing that you thought of that you like is ice cream. Like, that's just a kid trying to be a kid. Like, oh, bless your heart. And it worked. I love that it worked. It's like ice cream against the cans.
I know. I was so relieved when it worked. I thought, oh my goodness, there's a God.
Yes.
Yeah. I get to go play again.
Amazing.
Yeah, so that was one thing. And then the other big thing that they have you do at that age is what they call lowered conditions. So they have these formulas. So depending on your bad acts, your bad deeds, you can do any one of a few different formulas. Like, for example, if we hopped the fence and ran up to the park where we weren't supposed to be, they call that a quote-unquote blow, and that is leaving without authorization, AWOL, basically.
Oh my God, that's so dramatic.
I know, and so if you do that they consider as a betrayal of trust. So you're going to do the condition of treason. And I'm going to tell you how, like, weird these formulas are. So you have confusion is the lowest, treason is the next, enemy is the next, doubt, and then liability. So you have to get through each, like, so let's say you start treason, that means you have to then do enemy, and then do doubt, and then do liability. And, like, the treason formula is find out that you are. I mean, what 6-year-old knows what even that means? I'm like, find out that I am, like, I'm Jenny?
What?
And they're like, yeah, and they're like, no, but what is it that you are? I'm like, I'm Jenny.
I wouldn't know how to answer that at 35. Like, honestly, I'm like, I'll let you know when I know, because...
Yeah. They have to kind of, like, spoon feed it for us. They're like, well, what are you? I'm like, a human? They're like, well, you're not human. I'm like, I'm a being. Yeah, they're like, okay, good. So then you write down, I'm a being, And then enemies, like, find out who you really are. So I was like, oh, that's where it is. I said, well, I'm Jenny. And they're like, but who are you really? I was like, no, I'm pretty sure that I'm Jenny.
Pretty sure. Last time I checked, still Jenny.
Yeah. They're like, well, what did you do to end up in this condition? I'm like, I blew. And then they go, okay, so are you really that person? I'm like, oh, no. Okay, so I'm Jenny who doesn't blow.
Wow.
And then you do doubt, where you have to decide based on what they call the greatest good for the greatest number of dynamics. And their dynamics are their urges to survive. They have 8 of them. And so you have to look at all of them from a Scientological viewpoint, though. And you go, okay, the best thing to do is to stop blowing and be in this group, blah, blah, blah. Then you do liability, where you have to actually make up the damage done. But they say it has to be far beyond the ordinary demands of a group member. So that means you can't just go do work. You have to do it during like a meal break or maybe like playtime or something that is above and beyond, basically. And another part of the formula is what they call like delivering an effective blow. Now, keep in mind, we're still only like 6, 7, and 8 years old. And
so
so
complex.
I know. And like, so for delivering an effective blow, that means like you have to actually literally, it's kind of like almost like literally giving a blow to whoever is the enemy. So something that would kind of create that same effect. So that's where the snitching and like ratting somebody else out comes into play. Because that's what they consider as like an effective blow. So we have to go, well, okay, blah, blah, blah was with me when I did it. So now they're in trouble. But, you know, and so then you go through these steps. And then not only do you do all this and all of this amends, you have to go around and ask all of the kids in your group, like 100, 200 kids, if it's okay to join the group again. As a 6-year-old. Or a
It's just like
7-year-old.
tearing you down, breaking you down, making you question yourself, making you feel like shit, and then basically like reformatting your way of thinking and then humiliating you by making you go ask the group if you're allowed back in because you don't deserve to be in, so it's up to them. Like, at such a young age is wild.
It's
and
confusing.
I'm sorry, why are they calling it giving someone a blow? Can we address that? Because I'm being tempted so often to say that's what she said when you're saying this stuff. And I feel like I can't be the only one.
I know.
Why are they calling it this?
When...
It's highly suggestive.
I never thought about it until I had left. And after I left, I was thinking about how, I was telling somebody about how, because I blew in the end. And I was thinking about it, and I was like, oh, it literally sounds like I'm telling somebody I gave somebody head. You know what I mean? It's like
1,000%.
Yeah.
And they were like, wait, ma'am, we don't need to know your business, what you and your husband do in the bedroom.
I know. So bad. And you don't think about it then because it's the only way it's really used there. You know what I mean? Like,
right.
Because in there also, like, they have this big thing too. Like, sometimes we'd make dirty jokes about things like that, but they have this thing called joking and degrading. And so if you get caught joking and degrading, this is it. Joking and degrading means that you have crimes against whatever it is you're joking and degrading about. So if you're joking and degrading about blowing, then that's against the organization. That means you have crimes against Scientology. So they're going to sit there and dig and try and find those.
Wow. So they don't, what you're not going to do is have a sense of humor.
So, yeah. So basically, when I finally joined that upper level, when I was 15, I actually got in trouble several times for quote unquote joking and degrading. And then I just became this really stupid, mundane kind of person because I couldn't make a joke about anything without getting in trouble.
And isn't that probably the whole goal is like to create all of these robots, these like super predictable robots who are not going to talk out of turn or make a joke or say anything disparaging.
Yeah, you want very compliant, industrious people who will salute with both hands and they're not going to question anything. That's what they want. They don't want you questioning anything. They want you to just do your job, do it like... Anyways, it's quite crazy at that level. And it got crazier over the years. I mean, when I joined when I was 15, it was still a little bit looser, you know, I guess, if you will. Like, we still worked long, long hours. But there was some leeway on the weekends. You could still, like, ask for a day off. You can kind of, you know, go out on Saturday night, but you're not really supposed to. But if you did, no one's really going to get on you about it because too many people are doing it. And then they just, like, clamped down. There was none of that. And then suddenly there was, like, no days off. And then suddenly you're barely getting your... They give you a cleaning time every year where you can do laundry and stuff. And that starts getting short. And then all of a sudden the days are getting longer and longer. And then not only are you trying to meet quotas on your job, but you're also trying to meet it for like sales and for other things, and the punishments that start coming with it, that they start increasing. And then you start getting them for each of these things you're not doing. And it's just like, this is...
a billion years of this.
That was like one of the first things that I got told was joking and degrading. Because when I saw that, because the first time I had signed was when I was a little kid. I was 8 or something like that.
Yeah.
And so I thought they were catering to our little kid minds. So when I joined, I was 15 and it's still in there. I was like, I said, billion years. I said, oh, that's cute. I said it, and then I kind of laughed, and the recruiter goes, it's not funny.
Oh shit.
He goes, that. I said, you're serious, and he goes, very serious. He goes, and I was kind of like, he kind of brought up that I was joking and degrading about the billion year thing, and I was kind of like, oh, oops, like,
my bad.
Sorry, I didn't.
Right.
Know
it's
that.
like a little kid number, because there's nothing like when you're that little, you can't even comprehend. Like if someone's like a million billion, you're like, oh my god, it's forever. Like,
that's exactly.
It just because it doesn't sound real. It sounds gimmicky. So.
Mm-hmm. That was the exact example. I said it's like a kid when you say you're going to love somebody for like a million billion years.
Right. Yeah. It's like an over-exaggeration on purpose. Yeah. But no, these whole ass adults are believing it.
Yeah, they think that, like, so basically after you die, what you do is you get a 21-year leave of absence to go get another body, grow it up a bit, and come back. The motto of the Sea Org is "We come back."
Great.
That was always just a big old question mark for me. I was kind of like, we'll see when we get there. I mean,
yeah,
I don't know.
I'll make that decision later. I'm not making... I know I signed that billion year contract when I was 6 or 10 or whatever, but we're going to need to reevaluate that before I come back.
Let's put a pin in this one. We'll come back.
That's insane. I don't understand the pull. Like, what is the... I mean, obviously there's like brainwashing and all these crazy next level tactics that are being used against people all the way up to the Sea Org. But then you're prepared to do this for a billion years, forever and ever, especially like till the end of your life this term. Mm-hmm. And then you're working all of these hours, getting paid $40 a week. What is the driving factor? What is the want to behind it besides fear? Like, what is the goal line that you're working towards?
Yeah. Okay. So because obviously you're not going to just join an organization that says, hey, we're going to control your life and you're never going to have time off and you're barely ever going to sleep and we're going to scare the shit out of you 24/7. Yeah. No one's going to join and sign up for that. Right. So like Scientology has this goal of clearing the planet, right? Is what they call it. So clear is the state that they are trying to reach. So the very first book, it's called book 1, it's called Dianetics, and it deals with the reactive and analytical mind. And what they're saying is that you have in this reactive mind stored moments of like pain and unconsciousness, and they're called engrams, and these things are what are causing irrational fears, illnesses, and ailments and stuff like that are caused by these engrams. So the idea is that you can do what Scientology calls auditing, and you get rid of these engrams so you can reach this state of clear where you are no longer controlled by these engrams. And so that's the first big pull. People are like, yeah, I want to get rid of that because I have these irrational fears, or I have these illnesses I get all the time, and my eyesight is crap and whatever. And so people, they want to do that. And they had some other courses too that were big pulls, like one that addresses the subject of communication. And I think there's something to that one, although it's been added to where I think it's a bit much, but some of it I think is very helpful. And you have to have something that makes people stick around. And so they have little things like that. But so then once you get to the state of clear, you start hitting the upper levels, and you want to they're called OT levels, operating thetan. So now you're trying to... This is all very confidential. You don't get to know these stuff. Like, unless you leave, you don't know this stuff until you're at OT3. And that's when you find out about the evil overlord alien guy, Xenu, who rounded up they had an overpopulation problem, and he rounded up all these beings, spirits, thetans, they call them, and froze them in glycol and shipped them off to Earth and dropped them in volcanoes, and then blew up the volcano, dropped like hydrogen bombs in the volcanoes, and it released these thetans, and now they're everywhere and they're stuck to you. And now these things are causing illnesses and fears and irrationalities. But anyways, if you backtrack to the clear thing, that first point, so you always, like, the purpose for the Sea Organization is to, get ethics on the planet, which will then allow it to be cleared, right? So the idea is that you get this cleared planet. And that's where they consider that you have the majority population that doesn't have the reactive mind anymore. They got rid of all these engrams. And so here you are thinking, at that level, the whole world is going to be this amazing, better place. People are going to get along. There's not going to be psychosomatic illnesses. People aren't going to be dropping like flies, there's not going to be like these levels of aberration, they call it, deviant behavior or whatever. So you have these people like at the different levels all committing to doing this, like the staff members, and then the seaorg members are like just hardcore. They are like I say, they're 24/7, and that's what they're working towards. So that's one of the things too that gets used against them if they're not doing their job or whatever. It's like, you're not pulling your weight to make sure that we get this planet cleared. So you have the weight of the world on you when you're doing something wrong, or you're not participating at the level they want you to.
You're not just failing yourself, you're failing like the planet. The first time you heard all of this about like an overlord and all of this,
I was out already.
Oh, that's right. You said you don't hear about it until you're out. So how did you hear about it? And then did you believe it? Like, because at that point you're out and you're hearing about, this is what's actually taking place higher up. Were you like, oh yeah, that makes sense? Or were you like, I've never heard that. No, that's not true.
Okay, so yeah, let me tell you when I first saw
this is gonna be good.
It was on South Park. That's where I saw the whole story.
No.
And I'm like, I was watching an old rerun late at night, and I was like, what? Now,
what was that?
And the only reason, normally I would have thought, this is just some big joke, but it's funny.
Yeah.
But there were some things they said that stuck out to me because I had seen them when I shouldn't have while I was still in. And that was the word Xenu. I didn't understand what it was. I didn't really know anything about it. But we had protesters one time, and on a big sign, it said Xenu. And so later on, they're like going around, what signs did you see? And they, and I was kind of like, I saw something that said like Xenu or Xenu or something because it's spelled with an X. And they're all, okay, we just want to give you what they call an R factor, or reality factor. They go, we just want to let you know that there basically is nothing to that, and it's false information and whatever. And I'm kind of like, it's a word. I'm not thinking much about it anyways, whatever.
Right.
And then one time we were cleaning up some old file rooms from like years and years and years ago, and there was a photocopy of something that was in L. Ron Hubbard's writing, and it talked about Xenu and something about like, glycol and, so it was that story. But like at the time I read it, I didn't know what glycol was. I didn't know what Xenu was. There were so many things about it I didn't understand that I just kind of put the paper down. I was like, whatever. And so later on, I said, I found all these things, and some of these are in L. Ron Hubbard's writing. And they were like, was there anything else? Like, did you say? I'm like, bring it down a few notches. And, so later I got another thing. It's like, want you to know that was probably part of one of his fiction stories and da-da-da, because he was a science fiction writer. And so I was like, okay.
It was part of a fiction story, all right. That the whole religion is based on.
Yeah.
They weren't lying about that part.
And I never thought about it again. And then all of a sudden, here I am when I was living in Texas, and I'm late night TV watching old reruns. Because I used to, like when I left there, I had really bad insomnia because I had gone so long without sleeping that I then couldn't sleep anymore. I actually was diagnosed with sleep deprivation, but so I'd be up real late watching just whatever crap was on.
Yeah.
Yeah, and so I saw that, and I was like, oh my God.
Wait a minute.
Yeah, and I was like, I don't know, do they really think that? Like, maybe this is a twisted version somehow, I kept thinking in my head.
Sure.
And so then, some years later, I was listening to a podcast, and it was with somebody who had been a previous, like, at that higher level. They were, like, done with all these OT levels, and they were talking about it, but they were laughing because they were like, when I look back at it now, they're like, it's just funny to think I believed that, and I believed it wholeheartedly. And so then it just locked in. I was like, oh my God, they really do believe that. And then I sat there and thought about all my years in there. And I was like, I was working for that? Like,
yeah.
I'm slaving away. I have been treated like inhumanely, and I have tolerated all kinds of stuff for that. I was like,
Ooh.
I was like, they should have told me that when I was signing that thing, that's what I was signing up for, because I would have been like, bye.
And that's why they don't tell you, because it's like they have to have people brainwashed at these, like, I think it's interesting how they set it up as like different levels and different names for each levels, because it's like they have to have a certain level of dedicated, brainwashed, broken down type of person who will believe something like that. Because if they told you that at earlier steps, you would have been like, peace out. This is some horseshit. This is crazy. Of course not. I'm not falling for this scam.
Right? Yeah, exactly. Yeah. I mean,
Yeah.
I think a lot of people would have been like, no thanks.
Yeah, no, not for me. Not for me.
Yeah, you'd probably always get your handful of the few who want to follow an alien, and that's fine. But at least they know up front that that's what they're giving, their life to.
And those people were part of Heaven's Gate.
Then I had to wonder too, like, do my parents really believe that? Because they're both OTs. They both are.
So they know about it.
Yeah, and it's taken everything in me to not ask them about it, because
I was about to say, how have you done it? Because I mean, I understand why you haven't asked them, but I bet that's a struggle. Like,
yeah, because that would be that would be the first thing that would tip them off that I was looking at, like, anti-Scientology stuff. And then again, once they find that out, that's like the big fat, like, she's becoming an enemy.
But you're considered an enemy if/when you leave, but it's like completely cut off, no contact for family if they were to find out you were speaking about this or looking at anti-Scientology.
Yeah, so
material.
If you look at some anti-Scientology stuff, they'll try to fix you and get you to stop doing it. And but if you start speaking out, then that's where they crosses the line, and
no going back from that.
Yeah, not really.
Yeah, I think I had read somewhere that one of the big no-nos with Scientology members is that you're not allowed to, like, look up anything. You're not allowed to Google Scientology, not even anti-Scientology stuff, but like even look online or read things online outside of the organization that have anything to do with Scientology, good, bad, or otherwise. Is that true?
That is true. Like, especially in seaorg, you don't even have internet access. Only a few people have cell phones, and then they try to get those cell phones, get the internet, like, deactivated. What? So it can only be used for phone calls.
Interesting. So no social media, like no anything, because you don't, at the seaorg, you don't live outside of that, right? Like,
right.
That's your home. That's
right.
Well, that's your concentration camp, essentially. So you don't. Yeah, everything else is limited. But how do they keep people? So, like, the baseline, what you were saying earlier, like the basic Scientologist. Basic. No, I'm kidding. But like the parishioner type of level Scientologist, how do they know that those people, because they're not so far brainwashed, what's keeping those people from Googling or hearing outside information?
Because, like, so as you progress up these different levels, you get checked. So they will check to find out if you've been doing anything like that. And if you do, then you're going to be in ethics. You're going to be in trouble. You're going to be doing lower conditions. You're going to be making up amends. You're going to be now, and you're doing this all on your dime. So now you're set back. And now you might have to get like an actual metered confessional where they interrogate you and you pay
What do
for
you
it
mean
as
they
the public.
check? They check people's like Google search? What do you mean?
So like they have what they call a security check, which is like it's on the e-meter, and it's an interrogation on the e-meter. So like let's say you're on there, you're holding hands, they'll ask you things, since you were last here, have you looked at anything that was anti-Scientology? And they're like, whoop, oh, what did you just think of? Okay, so I saw this article and I clicked on it and it was blah, 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 blah. It said this, stuff about Scientology and da, da, da. And they'll get all the information about it. And then, if your needle's floating, good. If it's not, they'll go, was there an earlier similar time? And then you'd be like, well, okay, fine. So I did a Google search and, so now you're spending time that you've paid for being asked about all this stuff. Once it's done, you're now going to go to the ethics department and you're going to be having to study. First, what they're going to try and do is what they call dead agenting. And so that's when they take, like, let's say the anti-Scientology was about David Miscavige beats people. So now they're going to show you a bunch of affidavits from different people who say he's the greatest person that ever existed and he's never done anything like that. So you're going to sit there and read all this stuff and go, oh, okay, so now that person who said that has been discredited. And then they'll show you things about the person, like let's say Joe Blow was the one who said it on the internet. So they go, let me show you what Joe Blow has done. Let me show you his history. They'll dig up any dirt they can find
because they'll
on
have
that
his
person.
file. Yeah.
Yeah, and if
because
they're
the only
not
ones that are going to know, the only people that are going to have dirt on Scientology are ex-Scientologists, and then that's why they keep those intense records. Is so in those cases they can be discredited.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
and then up all of their shit.
Yeah, exactly. And then say it's like somebody who was not a Scientologist that was speaking out. They're going to try and dig up dirt on that person and be like, this guy used to watch CP, And so now this person's going, oh my God, I was looking at stuff from this pervert and all these people say he's great and da-da-da-da. And now you're going to be like, okay, now you've violated all these policies, of the organization and da-da-da. So now you have to study all them. Now you're doing lower conditions and making up amends. And now you have to go around and ask everyone if you could be in the group. And, okay, so now that you're done with that, now let's do your next step. So in between, people are like, yeah, I'm not going to look at any of that stuff because I'm not.
Yeah, it's easier to avoid because that's all. Oh my God, the hoops you have to jump through. Well, if they ever come across this video, baby, there's all kinds of dirt on me. Don't eat your hearts out. You're gonna have a fun time with that. So you said they pay. You said they pay to be there. So you pay to go to these like confessionals, and how often is that?
So, like, Scientology is a pay-as-you-go. You're not going to get services for free. You're going to pay for everything. And so...
Like Afterpay? I'm just kidding.
Huh?
I said, is it like Afterpay or a firm? You pay as you go?
Pretty much. Basically, the way it is once... Like, you can do courses and stuff like that, but if you want to become an OT, which is that highest spiritual level that they're all trying to achieve... Right. This is through the Scientology auditing. And so Scientology auditing, they have exact processes they do with you on the e-meter. But what they do in between is they try to keep you cleaned up. So especially when you get to the higher levels, every 6 months they check you. A lot of times it's just before you start. And then, start that action and then you finish it. And they'll only check you that one time. But when you're on these upper levels, because they're long and they stretch out for years, every 6 months they'll make sure you're on the straight and narrow.
I want to know how much money. I'm nosy.
So I think from bottom to top, with all the little side shenanigans you'll end up doing in between, I think like the lowest would probably be quarter to $500,000. Yeah, so like 250,000, 500,000 from
For
bottom
what
all the way
span
to
of
the top.
time? From start to finish.
Yeah, and then but you a lot of times you do things in between, so that will tack on, and then they also do a shit ton of fundraising. So you're going to get nabbed for that. And depending on how much they get you for on that, you could be paying thousands to millions.
And then if you fuck up and you basically get demoted, then you have to, it basically extends the amount of time until you reach those higher levels. So that adds more time, which adds more money, right? So the organization,
and likely if you fuck up,
actually,
you're going to get regged or fundraised for buildings or whatever.
I see. So essentially the organization is incentivized to demote people and keep them at a level, and it's making sense because like all of these interrogations and all of these things trying to force information out of you to make you have to go through all these extra steps. It's like just this loop, this constant loop of keeping people feeling like shit and extending their time and making them feel like they haven't earned the next step so they can get more money out of them. And then now I'm curious, the higher up you go, does it cost more money for the certain
for sure,
like courses? But if you're working more hours, and getting paid $40, how the hell do you afford courses that are even more expensive?
I mean, so yeah, like the stuff you do very like at the very beginning, you're talking about paying like $50 for like a course, or maybe a few $1,000s for 12 and a half hours of auditing. What they call it. They always sell them in chunks of 12 and a half hours. I don't really know why, but that's what they do. It's called an intensive. And so, but then as you go, the price is increased. But then also, shoot, you said something that made me think of something and it just jumped straight out of my head.
Oh, it's like, how do you afford it? Maybe? How do you afford it if you're getting, if you're getting paid
here
like
to
$40?
start with, Scientology says that Scientology is there to make the able more able. So they aren't dealing with people who aren't like they're homeless or they're less than doing fine, But they will do different things. Like if the person is expected to just sort of figure out how to pay for all this. So they're either taking out lines of credit, they're putting on credit cards. I've seen them convince people to take out like second and third mortgages on their house. I've seen them tell people to do like just go way in debt beyond their ability to pay. And then a thing that came up recently, I wasn't there, or if I was, I didn't know about it. But apparently there was a big thing that happened 2000, somewhere in like late 2000, like 16, 2019 type time. Mm-hmm. And apparently where they ended up getting busted by Chase because they were getting people, to open like multiple like credit cards using bullshit names, or like opening it for people when the people didn't even know it was being opened, opening them for people who clearly could not pay, and then just maxing the crap out of them. It ended up so bad that Chase caught on to it and basically threatened to go legal. And so the top of Scientology had to go and say they busted everyone who was doing any kind of fundraising, or they call it regging people to do these services, salesmen, and busted them all off their jobs and said, look, we've done all these things, like kind of give us, we're reforming. So as far as I understand, Chase didn't go like legal with them, but Chase apparently will reject any payment that goes to the organization now. They won't. Yeah. It's
really
built into their system, I guess, is what I was told.
That.
So if someone,
good.
But Chase wasn't the only one. Apparently they were doing the same thing with like Navy Federal, that one in Texas, and like a few other of these like credit unions and banking. Like apparently they had to set a similar thing where Amex cut them off and said, no, you're not,
I wonder how long until all of these financial institutions are catching on and are going to block any type of payment like that. Like, I don't know if that's sustainable, Scientology. People...
Yeah. I don't know.
What are they going to do?
Yeah, I don't. Sell their houses.
That's just so wild. Like, they're ruining lives on just every possible level. They're exploiting all of this labor from children and from adults, and just like ruining people's credit and finances and families, and then family dynamics, like the connection. I know you shared a little bit with me before about how your parents basically abandoned you when you were teeny tiny to go to Florida from California for training. Like, the way that they rip families apart and normalize that just does lifelong damage, and that's putting it pretty lightly.
Yeah, I agree with you completely, and I've seen it with a lot of, other people I know. They were in that same situation where their parents were in, and it's like, even though my parents did come back, it's still like this. Then we're still at these daycares and in the cadet org and stuff like that all day long, and we aren't seeing our parents anyways until they come pick us up when we're totally sleeping and taking us home, and the next day we get up and go back again. So you already have that separation of the family that occurs, and that dependency on the organization. So like the kids then become more dependent on the organization because, hey, look who's feeding them, look who's taking them to school, look who's whatever. I mean, eventually school becomes an unimportant thing as well, and they started to recruit people in younger and younger, and school just went straight out the window.
Why do you need education? You're going to be here a billion years, so it's really honestly outdated education is, so let's not even bother.
What they say, I totally forgot about this, but like one of the things they say is that because you live for hundreds of millions of lives or whatever it is, that you've already learned all this stuff before. The only thing you have not learned before is Scientology. So this is the stuff for you to learn.
Have they not seen Twilight? Okay, do we not know that the whole Collins family still went to high school even though they had been doing high school for hundreds, thousands of years? It's still important, okay?
It's that
Have we learned nothing?
Yeah, it's really wild. And, and like I said, over the years too, the conditions just got like worse and worse. I mean, going to bed used to be like, between 11 and midnight, and then all of a sudden before I left, on a good night I was going home at like 3 or 4 in the morning
from work.
Yeah, work or the punishments. Yeah.
What was the I want to know about the punishments. What punishments were there? I know you mentioned like cleaning and things like that, but not just like cleaning, but make it worse type of thing.
Yeah, like it's not a punishment if it's like you just have to go mop a floor. It's got to be something that they consider to be, as they call it, grueling mess work. So mess is literally just the physical world. Anything like tangible, So it has to be grueling. So, and it has to be working with something like that. So it'll like like scrubbing rust off of metal, getting inside dumpsters and scrubbing them inside and out.
Like what dumpsters? So here's my thought. If they have all of these people constantly cleaning and constantly doing these punishments, how is everything not spotless? Like, where do they continue to get things to clean and to scrub? Like, not trying to be funny, like genuine. Like, where do these dumpsters come from? Are they the organization's dumpsters? Do they take you around to like, what is happening?
So you have first of all, you got a lot of organizations and a lot of square footage. So, for example, that one whole city block is their buildings. Then they have a building across the street, and then across the other street, there's another three buildings, and then over just a block away is another one of their buildings. So, and that's just in that one location. They are like real estate freaks, they, like the Mormons buying half of the cities. Right. And, so yeah, There's no shortage. And then by the time you're done doing all the dumpsters and now you've like been scrubbing the greasy, disgusting galley floors with toothbrushes and then getting into what they call Rat's Alley, which is the most horrendous, disgusting thing in the world. But once you
Do I
do
even
that, oh,
want to
well, the
know?
dumpsters are all nasty again. So,
What's Rat's Alley? What is
oh my
this?
God. Okay. It's this.
I'm
So
scared
right
to know,
underneath
but
the,
I must know.
so right underneath the galley, you know, where all the cooking is and everything,
Mm-hmm.
it's this like sort of a 3.5 foot opening that runs right underneath it. So it's where all of like the grease and the grime and stuff drip down into. So like when they're mopping floors or cooking or whatever, it all falls under bits of
Yeah.
food. And it's just pitch black. But it is literally infested with rats and big freaking cockroaches. Those
Oh no.
big
Nope.
ones. And
Nope.
one
I'm
time,
out.
oh, I mean, horrendous. Like, oh, yeah, no. I made it 2 feet in there. I said, I would rather you kick me out, put me under comment for 3 years. I'll just, you know what? I'll do anything but that. And I backed
Oh.
right out because even just, oh, just even putting your knee down, crunchy. So you knew you landed on
Oh, I've
something.
literally got like chills.
Yeah, and
Those are the two
heebie-jeebies
things I
and
hate the most. Cockroaches and rats. I cannot do those. Are like I would do snakes and spiders before I would do cockroaches and rats. That is
all day.
disgusting.
All day. Roaches are to this date probably my absolute biggest fear because the buildings were all infested with them since I was a child.
Oh my
Like,
god.
yeah, even in the daycare, I was telling my cousin about this, but like we used to have a rule when we were little tiny kids. Before you go into a room, you flip on the lights real quick because a lot of times it would, not
So
only
they
make
can
them scattered, but if they were on the wall or the ceiling, a lot of times just flicking it real fast or off and on would make them drop so that they
Oh,
wouldn't fall on
gross.
you. Yeah. And so a lot of times we just do it real quick and then run into the room and I would wake up. I've woken up in the middle of the night where like we used to live with a freaking bug crawling across me. Like, I mean, I was always trying to sleep, make sure I slept with my mouth
That's a
closed.
horror
I was
movie.
scared they'd climb in there,
Oh.
but
How?
it
You
was
guys are
always an
cleaning
issue
24/7. How is it infested?
because I
Did you?
think even if you clean it, and we had to like seriously clean every weekend, like bleach things and everything. But I think it's just like when you're that infested, you have to exterminate regularly, or or like every time you mop it, it's just a couple days. It's a matter of a few days before everything makes its way back again. It's you just
I hate that.
yeah,
I
it's
hate that so
nasty.
much. Oh my
Yeah.
god. When you left, did you ever find yourself flickering the lights in rooms that you would go into,
Ye-
like after you left?
Yeah, especially
Just
after
out of
I got
habit?
I don't know if it was a habit, but like the first place I landed is in Florida and they had those palmetto bugs. So
Oh yeah, you should do that anyway in Florida.
so I was just scared in general, so I would even sleep with the lamp
Oh
on just in
god.
case. And then
Yes.
of course the next place I moved to is Texas.
Oh god.
Yeah. But you know what's funny is
And they
like
have scorpions there.
yeah, they do. And rattlesnakes and roaches, but even even there it's just nowhere near like what it was like there. I mean, and also I think part of the problem too, and maybe I'm wrong, is like so even though we're always cleaning kind of, you have so many people squeezed into such small, like it's big, but for the amount of people we had there, like the dorms that we stayed in, I was never in a dorm with less than 8 people.
Oh wow.
And we're not talking big dorms. We're talking like a single bedroom kind of situation.
Yeah.
They're just stacked up
Sounds like
real close
military.
together. Yeah, super tight. So you have tons of people, and I don't know. It was
And
like they
everyone
bought
has
us our
different
uniforms.
hygiene and like
Yeah.
habits. Oh god.
Yeah, and then if somebody isn't hygienic, or even like, in a lot of cases, because they're supposed to provide your uniforms, but I mean, considering we couldn't even get paid all the time, our meager $50, like,
Right.
trying to get a new pair of shoes was a joke. So people's feet would smell so bad. So I don't know if that also
Oh
helped
man.
bring, you know,
Right.
and then they're trying to
Gosh.
figure out how to cycle 3 shirts through the 7-day thing, and it's,
If you're working 7 days a week, but you have 3 shirts to wear, but then you're doing things like Brass Alley and scrubbing floors, like you're gonna smell like shit by day
yeah.
3, by day 4.
Yeah, they make you get out of your uniform and go put on your own clothes to go do things like that, so you can ruin your personal stuff.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay. That makes,
Yeah.
of course they would. Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah. So
Gosh.
gross. I remember, like, I made, like, when I was doing the thing I told you in the galley, I mean, we're talking like years and years of stuff caked into the grout, in between the tiles. And so that's why we had the toothbrushes, because we're doing the little grout in between there. And so we were literally up doing this till probably 3 or 4 in the morning. I don't even remember what I said, but I made some joke about it. Because, I mean, when you're, like, experiencing that level of misery, I mean, sometimes you just gotta make a joke or two. So I made some
Yeah.
crack about it. I had to stay for an extra hour after everybody. I was like,
Oh, great. Well,
fuck.
that's what you get. That's what you get for having a sense of humor. How dare you?
I know.
You know they don't like that. You didn't.
Oh.
Yeah, you got punished for your. Well, no, I was gonna say the blowjob joke, but that wasn't cool. The billion year joke. So.
Yeah,
So rebellious.
I used to keep, especially like when I was in the EPF, I couldn't help but, like, EPF is just a boot camp that you do before you, like, when you're first joining. And I just couldn't help myself. I was making jokes out of everything, and they were just finally like, you have to stop that. You're
We
going
don't
to get in
like that here.
serious trouble. I was like, oh, okay.
And you did. You found that to be true.
Yeah. It's true. I mean, one time, like, the highest justice action they have is called a committee of evidence. And so this is this is when everything else has failed. And
Oh shit.
yeah, no, so it's this, like, fact-finding body. You have these 4 people. You have a chairman, a secretary, and 2 members. And they take basically these reports that are supposed to say which, like, like offenses, crimes, and high crimes you've committed. They have a policy that lists them all out. And yeah, they go through them, and they they ask you if you plead guilty or not guilty to them. And if you say not guilty, you got to show them, like, proof of why that would be. Anyway, so, but when you're under justice like that, if you're getting a COMEV, you are, like, you have absolutely no personal life. I mean, you're not going to, anything that could be even remotely considered like an award or a, free time off type thing. You're not getting that. You're constantly having to, like, make amends or whatever. It's just, you have no privileges, whatever. Everything's kind of stripped from you. And it's only supposed to take 7 days or something like that. I was under comment for 2 years. So I was basically...
You little overachiever.
No.
You raised that bar, baby.
Oh, it's so bad, because even when, like, this is the way it works, right? So they say if your stats are up, then you can kind of get away with murder, is what they say. So everything's based around you producing. But if you're under a COMEV, it doesn't matter how much you're producing. You are still going to be subject to any penalties that come with being down stats.
What did you do to get 2 years? Or was it just like little things along the way that just kind of kept extending your time?
Yeah, so the first time they were doing it and trying to get it together, it just didn't do it. So then they readjusted things, different members. They finally got it together and did it, submitted it. It makes it to the approval point, which is called IJC, in quote unquote, like this senior office, basically, without getting into the weeds. And there's like a kind of a policing kind of thing with the ethics and justice or whatever. And they get there and they go, you cannot, because she's an executive there, you can't actually do a committee of evidence at that level because it has to be done at a level higher. So then they take it to this unit that is outside of an org, and they're kind of considering it to be higher. So they do the whole thing all over again.
Oh my God.
All the dicking around. They get it, and then they submit it, and they go, "We already told you that you cannot, it cannot be done lower." And so they said,
but that
so
wasn't
then,
even on you, that right? Like you weren't the one making that call, but you were the one taking the hit for it by.
Yeah, I'm going to shut my mouth as much as possible during this process because, it's already terrible being considered like justice. You come like every week you're listed as like, one of the down stat people. You have no
Wait,
protection.
they put out lists?
Huh?
Did you say they put out lists?
Yeah.
There's like a shit list, essentially?
Kind of. It's like an issue of like who's up stat, who's down stat, and if and then who's like in under ethics and justice. And it would get put out every week, and depending on the intensity of the situation, they could it could go out to like multiple orgs, and then so
they're like, this Jenny, she's a frequent flyer, she's always on this list.
Yeah, it was just so wrong in every way. I mean, technically that violates policy. Like, technically if it's not done within the 7 days or 2 weeks or whatever it is, it's supposed to be canceled. But apparently because I was such an a-hole, they're going to make sure it happens no matter what. And like, it was just... It was really what it comes down to is you had two people who were like a pit bull with a freaking rope, and they were not going to let go because they needed to be right about it. Right. And they took issue with me. I didn't get along with those people until the day I left. And so, and unfortunately, one was the one who worked for me, and one of them was my boss. So, even if I was the main producer, they're counting on me for all these things, but yet they want, to make sure that, like, I'm a piece of shit. Anyway, so finally it went to the higher organization. They did the whole thing. They got it done in 7 days. I was sure I was like canned. I was like, they're going to boot me. I don't know what they're going to do. I'm going to get kicked off my job. Something's going to happen. And I thought, if they send me to the RPF,
we fucked up.
If they send me to the RPF, I'm out. I'm leaving.
Yeah.
And, but they didn't. They actually just said for me to finish the conditions I was done, that I had already done so much crap in the time that it took to do this. So they were just like, at this
time
point,
served.
Yeah.
They counted as like time served. Yeah.
Pretty much. And that was probably the most fair thing that's ever happened to me in there. It unfortunately took 2 years to get there, but I've never had people look at... Usually those things are very biased. They're supposed to be fact-finding, but they're very biased. And so... Yeah. And believe me, I had done more than one of those. And so that was the first time where I actually had that. And I was kind of like, wow, I guess... sometimes it really does work.
Served.
Yeah. Meanwhile, I just spent 2 years in hell. Right. I'm
like, wow, I've been vindicated.
So
and you've been suffering like a ridiculous amount of time, way more than other people. Oh my God. But like any type of reprieve or something positive, using that loosely happens, you're like,
I know. Like, it doesn't even outweigh what happened, but then at the same time, it's like, it's almost enough to go, well, look, it did work this time.
Right. God.
And then,
but for how long before you fuck it up again? Because that's what they want you to do. Yeah.
And I did a lot. It was just like, and it's not really that I was always messing up. I mean, the main thing is I had a lot of pressures on me, and it just, it's kind of like who's yelling the loudest to get things done, and then, you get one thing done, but now you get the thing done for this person, but the thing this person was yelling about didn't get done because you were doing this, so now you're going to get punished for that. It's like...
That's the thing, it's like not, that's what I was thinking is, it's not that you were fucking up, it's the expectations that were placed on you are so unrealistic. You can't help but something like something will slip through the cracks, and because you can't do it all, but then you're still punished as if you fucked up when you just can't possibly keep up with all of these unrealistic expectations. It's like it's setting you up for failure.
Right, and it's kind of like, like when they started doing this thing where they were going to throw people overboard. So since we're not on a ship, literal, whatever, they're going to simulate it. So you either get a bucket of water dumped on you, like a 5-gallon bucket of water dumped on you, or you get hosed down. And they always do it in front of people. So it's totally freaking demoralizing, and so... I spent the day getting something done for somebody else, and it was a big accomplishment. It was something that had to be done, or like, I recruited somebody, and it's hard to recruit somebody into this type of an organization, believe me. And I had just done it, and I got called down to this urgent meeting, and I went to there totally not even thinking about what it could possibly be, because I'm dealing with this other thing. And they're like, you didn't make your sales quota for the day. And I'm like, yeah, I wasn't here. I was recruiting somebody. And they're like, you and the one other person, I don't remember who it was, are the two people who didn't make the sales quotas today. And therefore you are being thrown overboard. And they say some bullshit about like washing away sins or some fucking weird thing that I don't even remember hearing. And then they just like, it happened so fast. Before I even know it, next thing you know, I'm just drenched from like 5 gallons of water dumped over me, and I'm like, "What the fuck just happened?"
I would be pissed. I would be livid.
I was, like if you ever get so mad that you cannot even get a word out. I was that angry. Yeah. I was just. I don't even have words for how mad I was. I could not say a word. And I just turned around and I just started walking away. And the guy who did it had heard that I had just recruited somebody, and they were like, he's like, "Oh my God, I didn't know you recruited somebody. Oh, I'm so sorry. I should have checked." And she's in. I'm like, get the fuck away from me, like right now, like out of my vision, out of my space, like move. It's the best thing you can do right now. And I just went up to my room, took off my fucking wet clothes, cleaned up my makeup, put on some dry clothes. And I had this girl, this person sitting there waiting for me downstairs for me to get her started and everything. So I had to go back downstairs and pretend.
Shit, the person you just recruited?
Mm-hmm. And I had to go and pretend nothing happened. And she was like, she goes, "Oh, you changed." I said, yeah, I ran into somebody and something got spilled on me. I had to change. She goes, "All of your clothes?" I said, "It was bad." She goes, "But your hair is wet." I'm like, can you just stop?
The question, here's the thing. I know this is day one, you're just recruited, but the questions stop now.
I know, right? I was like, yeah, no, like I said, it was bad. I like literally had to take a shower. And she goes, "Oh, that, she's like, sucks." And I'm kind of like, yeah, get your shit and let's go.
Yeah, you can't exactly be like, no, there was, it was concentrations camp humiliation level tactics that were just done to me.
Like, yeah, and I'm that furious, and I'm having to pretend everything's normal. And that was like a big breaking point for me too. I'm like sitting there going, here I was, just had, to me that was worse than making me scrub metal till 3 or 4 in the morning.
Yeah.
Or getting inside the dumpster where I got scabies. That still somehow that water was worse for me. And, and I was kind of like, I'm bringing her in to this? And I was just like, I don't, and then I was like, okay, put it out of your head because you're going to be in trouble. Like, put it out of your head. Right. You just got the comment off of you. Like, let's not even worry about this right now. Like, move on.
Yes, repress that shit.
Yeah, and like he came to me the next day and tried to apologize, and I'm like, get the fuck out of my office. Like, we are not on talking terms yet. Like, go. Just go.
I would have been like,
I know.
I'm like so mad for you right now. I cannot even fathom.
And the thing is, it happened to my sister when she was only 14 years old, and I was raging. I was raging pissed. I didn't know how bad it was until it happened to me. And so, like, someone came and got me, and they're like, your sister is hella pissed right now. She's going up the street. You better maybe go get her. I'm like, first of all, why am I having to go do that? And I was like, whatever, I'm just going to go. I'm obviously her person. My parents aren't. So, no offense, parents, if you watch this. But so then I go and I find her. She's tromping up the street. She's fully dressed, soaking wet. And so I catch up with her and I'm like, well, what happened? Tell me what happened. And so she tells me all about it. And she basically got in front of like her whole group of people, fully dressed, got hosed down and got told she's being thrown overboard. And she was just, it was one of those things where, again, she was so angry. Words were just not even coming out. I mean, we literally circled the block, I think 2 full times before a single word came out of her mouth. Maybe even 3 times. And then she kind of talked a little bit, and then a little bit, and then a little bit. And she kept trying to be like, it's fine, it's fine, I'm okay, I'm fine. And
it wasn't.
Found out who it was, and he was supposed to be like a real high senior person on the, where we were. I didn't even care. Like, I couldn't even see that at that moment. I went and I was like, how dare you? I'm like, she is 14 years old. How dare you? And I was like, that is demoralizing. And I hope to God you're not doing this to other children. I said, it'd be one thing to do it to an adult, which would not be good. I said, but to do this to a child is absolutely not acceptable. And he's like, we are not children. Da-da-da. She's a seaorg member. I said, I don't care. She is 14. Period.
Her frontal lobe still hasn't fully developed, you son of a bitch.
Yeah, and so people were like,
I love that you stood up for her.
I'm like...
That was ballsy.
It was, especially considering who he was. But, like, at the moment, I didn't see that way, and so it's like, I took care of my brother and sister so much. I was that way about both of them.
Yeah, you were like almost like the parental figure, like that mother hen.
Mm-hmm.
Like,
yeah, it was
more like Mama Bear.
Mama Bear coming out, because boy, like, I didn't see anything except for a hurt child, and I was not going to have any of that. Like,
Yes.
Not okay. And so, yeah. So, she didn't stand. She actually got out much younger, which was very...
Oh, really?
Yeah. I think I'm so glad for her that she did. She's living a very good life now.
Oh,
she doesn't, she says she has no animosity for any things that happen, because she had some other pretty bad things happen, but whatever. They're her story. I'll let her share them if ever she wants to, but...
Sure.
There's no way there isn't something sitting there, because that stuff is...
Right.
It's so...
That's some heavy stuff to deal with. Again, I feel like I say this all the time, but starting at such a young age, because so many of us were indoctrinated and abused from such like little kid age, whether it's birth or 5 or 6 or 3, like, or 10 or 12.
Yeah. Like,
you're put through these really horrible things that, quite literally, scientifically speaking, since they love science so much, changes the matter in your brain, changes the neuropathways in your brain as you're developing as a child, and it fucks you for life. Like, it takes a lot of work, and I don't know if you can ever fully undo all the damage. I mean, you can rewire some of those neuropathways and, find ways to deal with this trauma, but it really impacts people lifelong. It's not as simple as forgiving and moving on. Like,
yeah,
that's not reality. I wish it was that easy.
Yeah, no, it would be nice, but it's like traumatic injury, like it's actually physical injury.
Absolutely. I was like, I've talked about that before, like jokingly, like, let me sue my parents for damaging my brain, for literal brain damage. Because the PTSD and the religious trauma syndrome and just like the nightmares and the, night terrors, like everything that comes with this level of trauma that we've experienced it's messed up.
Yeah.
And we're left to deal with it. We didn't make the choice to be in that type of environment. We didn't have a choice. And then we have to deal with the aftermath.
Yeah, like yeah, exactly. I mean now like being out and looking back in, and the more I look at it, I'm just like, these places are not places for children. Like if you as a consenting adult decide to knowingly go into something, well that's on you. But
That's your prerogative.
children, like I just feel like until they can make a choice, they shouldn't be subjected to it.
Agreed.
That's just how I feel about it.
Completely agree. You can't join the military until you're 18, and I feel like that's even too young. Like,
Yeah, even if your parents
18-year-olds
are in the military, you're not joining until
right,
that age.
right. It should be the same way for, and not just about Scientology, but
All of
any
them.
religion, honestly, because every
Agreed.
religion has such a aggressive indoctrination process, just in varying ways.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
Like
agreed.
you don't learn critical thinking, like, and that's why so many people just follow whatever religion their parents and their parents did. It's just, well, yeah, I believe that way because my parents brought me up that way. That's how I was raised. But where's the critical thinking? Where's the, like, figuring things out for yourself instead of just accepting that indoctrination? But I mean, easier said than done.
Yeah, I know. It's kind of like, yeah, like you say, there's a lot of stuff that's easier said than done. There's a lot of things where it's a little bit just too little too late. And then there's, just the things that you can't control. I mean,
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't know. It's not that, I guess that you can't control. I think like the amount of people who speak out now against it, like not just Scientology, but just these high control situations in general and abuse and stuff. I think it's at least, if nothing else, it's raising some awareness so people will hopefully think twice before entering something like that with children. I hope.
Oh yeah. Although Scientology specifically, if no one in the organization is allowed to listen or hear things against Scientology, they'll never probably watch even this video.
Right. No, for sure
or
not.
ones like it. But I think it gives people who have gotten out, whether it's Scientology or otherwise, because like we said at the very beginning, there's so many things undercurrent that are the same across all of these high control, high demand groups that people resonate with. So it's like, at least there's some comfort or some community in knowing, like, oh, I heard about this fucking alien person. Is that real? And then you find out, oh, they're ex-Scientology seaorg. Yeah, this is actually, like, it starts connecting dots for a lot of people and gives a sense of, togetherness and community when it's so isolating when you get out of any group. No one gets it. No one understands it. There's so many nuances to that experience.
Even different language, really.
Literally, especially you guys. Like a completely different code of rules and language and just words. Like, so I'm really happy that you're speaking out about it. So now you said you started a channel with your cousin who was raised atheist, right? So now you have a channel of your own where you're telling your story, but also talking to other survivors of various groups as well, right? You want to tell people a little bit about your channel?
So,
plug it, girl.
It started because my cousin started actually talking to me probably a few years ago now, about my experiences in Scientology, and I was just holding it all in because, I mean, who can I talk to? My parents are in, my brother and sister are in, like, no one's going to hear this stuff from me. And it just, and I was struggling with so much of it, and, and he just, like, with no judgment, just was kind of like, he would tell me things that were not right, things that you would never experience out in the normal world, and just kind of like getting me to see that, a lot of this stuff it's actually like damaging, where in my head, I was like just internalizing on it so much and thinking it was all me, just me, it's me, something wrong with me. I just don't see it. I just don't get it. And I would tell him, I was like, I just don't get it. I don't know why I don't see what they see. And he's like, no. You're seeing now, and this is a good thing. And so I realized that communication was really good. And when I finally got the balls to really just go, okay, you know what? Let's speak out about it because there's abuse going on. It should be known. But also, I need to confront my own past. Like, I need to own it.
Right.
I need to stop trying to pretend it didn't happen and, hide it from the whole world. I just need to embrace it and just be able to kind of work with it and move on. So, he was obviously a person that I'm comfortable talking to. So he started interviewing me on my story. And then I was listening to other podcasts. The weirdest thing, actually, one of the first things that really kind of set my mind off was a friend of mine. She's like a true crime junkie. And so she was like, you need to listen to Mr. Ballin. Do you know Mr. Ballin?
No.
And so, oh my God, you gotta look him up. You're gonna love his stuff. He's such an excellent storyteller.
Wait, is it like YouTube or just like a listen podcast?
YouTube, because it's visuals and stuff. He's taking
okay, gotcha.
actual criminal things.
I don't do as much.
Yeah, so you probably love him. He's really good. He just grabs you. Some of the stuff is actually kind of creepy and freaking me out. But one of the things I listened to was about this satanic cult down in Mexico. And I was like, this is insane. And then it was talking about the way the members would operate despite the level of insanity, despite the living conditions, despite how, tired, all these things. And I was like, ooh,
you're like, hold on.
We may not be sacrificing people, but I was just like, we kind of do that. And I was like, no, it can't be. But I remember that was the first moment where I was like, oh. So then I guess I must have started searching for cult things, because then I found this thing on another cult, and again, very different, but some similarities. And then I found Cults of Consciousness, where she was interviewing
my girl,
Jehovah's Witness they were comparing to. And this Jehovah's Witness, I was like, it is probably the closest thing to Scientology. I was just like, what the hell?
Yes.
This was before she even ever interviewed a Scientologist, but I was like, so then I really got to thinking anyway. So now here I am with the channel and everything. So as I realized that as I'm talking to these other people who are in these cults and high control religions, if you will, or whatever,
yeah,
it's actually opening my eyes more and more to the similarities make me understand my situation better.
Right.
If that makes sense.
Yeah, absolutely.
Seeing it seeing it happen to somebody else in a different setting, where I go, oh my God, that's so culty, and then I go, oh,
actually,
we did that too, oh yeah, we had that too, and so it's actually, I don't know, in some way that's been very healing for me.
Yeah.
And then a little bit like what you were just saying too, is you find this community, and there's people who have similar experiences, and it's kind of there's so much support there, and so it's, I don't know, I guess I just got inspired. Plus I'm just people are true crime junkies. I'm a total cult junkie. So I have listened to so many podcasts about all different kinds of cults. I'm way into it. I love it.
I love it. I know. I like the cults and true crime. I've been true crime war before cults, mainly true crime, because for a long time I didn't think what I was raised in was as drastic and as crazy as it actually was. I've been out 16-ish years now. But probably for the first, I don't even know, sometimes timelines are jumbled in my head, but
yeah,
I feel for at least probably the first 5 or 10, maybe 10 years, it was I don't really get along with my family. That's how I would talk about my childhood with people, even with therapists. It was when I really started going to therapy consistently, and I've had multiple therapists be in their very therapy lingo type of way, point out that wasn't okay, that was abuse, that was corporal punishment, that was that was a crime, that was not okay, and that was a cult. That's when I finally started being oh shit, was I in a cult? The more research that I did, I was so I was in a cult.
Yeah.
So I was raised in a cult. And my very first video that I ever posted about my story on Instagram, that's how I started off the video. So I was raised in a cult. And that's kind of how like this whole thing like exploded and took off for me. And it was just like that acceptance, like finally where any of us can get to the point of just putting words to it and acknowledging like, oh shit, this happened to me. And it was as severe as it actually was, because we diminish the impact that it had on us.
Yeah, well, also when because you were a child, you also don't necessarily know any different. So
no, that's all you
know is, yeah, you sit there and go, I hate this, but you don't think that there's a different option. You know, that's one of the things I realized. It was like I think like I'm not trying to say like that. You know, I was raised third world, but like as a child you adapt. So like I kind of look back and I go, well, I didn't hate everything about my childhood. I actually quite liked a bunch of it, even despite that stuff happening. And then I kind of say, well, you have kids do that. They adapt and they're going to try and find some joy and fun. I said, even like these kids in a third world country, they don't necessarily know anything else. So they're just going to, suddenly find that stick and dirt that's just a whole lot of fun, not realizing that they haven't had shoes for a year, and
and then there's like the whole almost like Stockholm syndrome aspect of it that we have with the people above us, and whether it's like an actual structured thing or if it's like the dad, the mom, the kids, that type of structure, but you almost have like a Stockholm syndrome attachment to the belief system or to the people above you that you don't realize is going on at the time until you're out.
Yeah, for sure. Like for years, I like hardcore defended it. While I'm like never sleeping, eating crap food, if I'm even catching my meal break.
Well, like you said, their whole purpose is to make you like to break you down and make you feel like something's wrong with you always. So when you get out, it's not like that just suddenly reverses. No, like, this is lifelong. You take that mentality because that's, again, your normal. So you take that out into your life no matter where you end up. And if you don't get it, then you're like, okay, something's wrong with me. Why am I not getting it? Why is everyone else believing this and having these results? What's wrong with me? Like everything comes back to something being wrong with me, not this whole organization is fucked.
Yeah. And then when you're out in the real world, I like to call it, it's like all of a sudden I'm just like, I feel like I'm this weird inferior thing, and I'm desperately trying to come off like I'm normal. You know what I mean? And it's like that in itself is sad. Like,
yes,
I am normal, but like I was raised so differently, and now I'm seeing in the real world that I was raised so differently, and I even have these different words. And people don't understand what I'm saying, and I'm just kind of like, I didn't even realize they weren't normal words or normal definitions, and I'm just like, Then
you feel like the alien, right?
Yeah. Exactly.
It's like a massive case of imposter syndrome.
Yeah.
Seriously.
You could take the whole fake it till you make it thing to a whole nother level.
Oh my God. Like you learn how to act in that type of environment when there's all of these expectations, and acting any differently than a certain way is going to get you horrible consequences. So you learn to act, you become a great actor or actress, and then when you get out, you still take those actor skills, and then you just have to apply it to the real world to try to like fit in and be as normal as possible. And there's been times I'm like, oh yeah, I killed that. Like, people think I'm so normal and so adjusted. Like, they have no idea. Like, I really got them with that. And then later they're like, no, when I first met you, I thought you were weird as fuck. I'm like, I thought I was good at it.
I know, I had this one friend, she goes, you're really weird, but in a good way.
No, explain yourself.
I was like, I'll take it.
Thanks.
I was like...
Hey, we like weird around here.
One of the things that I realized is a big change since being out is that the friends I have made out here are like actual friends. I didn't realize how many like friends that I didn't have. I mean, because they're very conditional friends. They'll turn on you in a second.
Yep.
It's not even just like the fact that like now I'm speaking out, I'll lose the rest of whatever may have been. But even like in there, like for example, there was one girl who I was very close with, and we were really good friends. We worked together, but we were also just very good friends. And while I was out of town, she just flipped and like literally totally screwed me over in a way that was going to set me back, like work wise, at least a year or two, probably, like, and make my life so, so, so difficult. And there, she knew that's what she was doing, but it was such an advantage for her. And it was the carrying out the command intention. It was like, I'm just doing what the seaorg wants. No integrity there, and so, and then like even as it goes with the other friends and stuff like that, because I've found my place, and I'm kind of like, okay, I'm gonna let all this go, but that includes speaking out. I'm gonna lose these, whatever there is left, but out in the real world, yeah, sure, I've lost some because that's just the way it goes,
normal. Yeah, sure.
But I have like a group of friends that we have been tight for probably 13, 14 years, something like that. And these are people who have like, without even asking, they will go the extra mile for me, or they will at least offer it, like they check in on me, it's like we do girls trips, like almost, we try to do them every year or two or whatever. But it's like, just because I'm a little bit strange and they know it, or because I decided I want to address this part of my life, they're still with me 100%. I'm really amazed and like so grateful for that, and I'm glad to see what real friendship looks like too, because I didn't.
Right, because before it's loyalty to the organization, not to a friend or not to the people. So it's easier to throw people under the bus if you feel like you're doing it for the greater good of the organization.
Right.
Than to stay loyal to a person. You don't get rewarded for staying loyal to a person.
Yeah, it's so true. And I remember when like things were starting to get more like physically abusive there, and they were trying to say like, hey, it's in the policy that the first pinprick, Joe gets a black eye. That's what we're saying. So the first time somebody does a tiny little whatever, and he's saying that's the difference between like an easy to live and work with group and a hard to live and work with group, and the easy to live and work with group, people are basically snitching on each other, but also like he says that the first pinprick Joe gets a black eye. And so they were kind of like, give that person a black eye,
Holy shit.
It was weird. So they actually, I remember this one time, they tried to get one of the girls to give this other one a black eye because she wasn't complying to something or something like that. I don't even remember what the exact scenario was for this, but I was standing there and I was thinking in my head, don't do it. Don't do it. Just because all the pressure in the world is on you, don't do it.
Right.
And I'm thinking that, and so she kind of like, she chickened out. She wasn't going to punch her, but she did kind of like hit her face, a little bit like a weak slap kind of. And then, so then everyone kind of leaves. It's humiliating, obviously, for the person.
Yes.
But as we're walking away, she's like, oh my God, well, that was really uncomfortable. I said, I need you to, I said, I'm just going to say this to you. Don't ever let anybody make you lose your integrity. You hesitated because you knew it wasn't right. And you should never let somebody, push that back.
Right, pressure you into doing that.
Yeah, and so she wasn't real particularly happy that I said that to her because I already know I would not have done it. I would have been like, go fuck yourself, because I'm...
literally.
Yeah, and I didn't have an issue with pushing back on something that was that bad, like if someone told me to go dump water or something, I'm like, no, not happening.
No.
Not doing
Draw
it.
the line there.
Yeah.
Much less physically assaulting someone. That's going to be a no for me.
Yeah, exactly. And so, like, that kind of thing was starting to occur. It luckily kind of faded back out again. But, like, I mean, come on. It's already bad enough what we're going through. You need to really
and I'm sure
add
it
that.
still happens. Like,
they say that some of these people say that David Miscavige literally punched them multiple times in the face. Like, full on, like, throwing his body at them. I know a guy who used to work with me, and he had to go up to the secret location, him and our boss. And David Miscavige was mad at them for not having enough books, like, in circulation or whatever. And I guess in the course, like, in the whole room was surrounded by, like, top brass kind of thing. And what they did is they took the chairs they were sitting in and threw them backwards on the floor. And he basically ripped into them and said, you have to have such and such done or you get kicked out, kind of thing. And they came back, and I kid you not, they looked like they had been electrocuted. They were so, like, live wires when they came back. They were fucked up. Yep. Absolutely nobody's gonna rat on him. Or anyone else for that matter. I mean, like, there are women who've been AR'd or children essayed, and they do not call the cops. And if you do, like, the girl, like one of the girls, like Danny Masterson, he did that to, multiple women. And the ones that did go to the cops finally, they all got declared, lost any connection they had to anyone who was still in there, including one of their parents. Wouldn't even talk to her, or mom, because the dad's not around. But, like, it's like, really, you're gonna do that to her when that happened to her? Like,
again, no loyalty to people, even if it's your own kids. It's only loyalty to the organization. And if you say something disparaging against the organization, like pointing fingers at, like, it's bringing a negative light by reporting, an essay or worse.
Yeah.
Then, you got to have loyalty to the group before you have loyalty to yourself or other people. It's so messed up.
Exactly. I mean, even at a young age, like, there were girls who were abused in the daycare at ages like 7 and 8, and I could name 4 people right now. But and they were told at that age that they did something to pull that in. Yeah. They made that happen. So now they're like all like introverted, thinking that they're sluts. 7? I mean, really?
Yeah.
I don't think so.
I could ask you a billion jillion more questions. We've been on like 2 hours now.
I know,
this
and
is
it's
so
like
fascinating. It's so interesting. Like, there's so much to tell.
I know, and we just really bounced around and like kind of like hit the surface on a few different topics. But yeah, someday maybe we'll talk about my great escape.
Seriously.
Yeah, and I'm glad that you are taking time to interview me too, because it's like listening to some of your other podcasts, and then just even in this conversation, just like things jarring loose. It's really, actually, for me, it's very helpful. It's just, it keeps bringing me like keeps making me look at things with a different perspective.
Right. Same here. Every person I talk to, as I'm sure you can relate, interviewing other people, it's like every single person I talk to, I will get little nuggets from, little things that kind of chip away at the things that are repressed, or the things that I haven't quite, like the onion. There's just so many layers. This trauma onion. Yeah, it is therapeutic to speak to other people who've been through shit.
It's like you say, it's that community, and which is really a support system.
Yeah, it's harder to heal when you feel alone. Thank you for sharing with me, but also thank you for giving that experience to other people, so none of us have to feel alone out here.
That's right.
I know you're tempted to blow like Jenni did, but before you do that, I would like to offer up my complete and total disrespect to the Church of Scientology. May they feast on festering dicks every day for 1 billion years. Cleanse your palate with this quick and hilarious episode on the craziest doomsday scams in history. And be sure to check out the Culture Shock playlist for more survivor interviews like Jenni's. To the rest of you beautiful heathens, live, laugh, and leave a cult.